Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machin Leira Online Smicha. Getting close to the end of the secular year, and there's a lot of things that in the world of business, Bechlal, and just being that we are surrounded by Goyim in general, there's a lot of different customs that are customary amongst people, amongst neighbors during this time of the year. And the question is, what does Halacha say about it? So there are two shilas to come about when you have an employee, and the employee is a Yehudi, not a non-Jew, and you want to make the employee happy, and you do the right thing, and many people have the custom that they make a gathering at the end of the year, thanking the good employees, giving them a bonus, and the question is there any shaila in halacha? Because of two separate issues. One issue is celebrating these moments, these days, which are obviously not a Jewish holiday. Just, I don't want to use necessarily the word celebrating, but just acknowledging those days. Is that a problem because it's participating in a Goyish holiday? And on top of that, just handing out bonuses, giving extra money, giving out presents. There is an Isser, as we will soon see, the Isser of Loi Sechanim. So the first question would be the question of participation in a Goyish holiday. The second question is, even if it's not in the time of a Goyish holiday, giving out bonuses to a Goy is a question of giving presents to a Goy, which the Torah tells us that a Yid should not go out of his way to try to find favor in the eyes of a Goy because of the Isser of Loi Sechanim. So let me split the issue and quote it as it's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch. About the issue of giving out presents or giving awards or giving promotions or bonuses during this time of the year, and it's in proximity to the Goyish holidays. So I'm going to read what the Mechaber and Ramah say in Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea, Simin Kuf Mem Ches Seif Yud Beis. In Simin Kuf Mem Ches, the Shulchan Aruch goes and makes a summary of the Gemara Avodah Zarah, where the Gemara says how a Yid has to be careful not to do business with a Goy in close proximity to the days of their holiday, because it might lead them to go to worship and thank their Getchke, so it might be an extension of Avodah Zarah. And the Gemara talks about it, when it applies, how it applies, v'chulu v'chulu. But then the Mechaber goes in Simin Kuf Mem Ches Seif Yud Beis, says, Yesh Omrim, there are those that say, She'en kol dvarim elu amurim ela ba'is azman. This whole halacha that doing something good, nice to a guy, or doing business to a guy during this period of time will lead him to go to church and worship the idol and thank the idol, that doesn't apply today's days. It only applies back then. Bizman hazeh, today's days, einam bekim b'tivalilim. They don't really worship idols the way they don't thank their getchkes when things like this happen. Lefichach, therefore, mutar lases v'lases imayim b'yom chagam. You're even allowed to do business with them on their holiday. Ulahalvoisam, and give them loans or take from them a loan, whatever it is. The chol shar dvarim, all the things that are mentioned in the Gemara that causes the guy to be happy, that might lead him to thank the getchke, doesn't apply today because they don't do that. They're not so bound with their getchke. Says the Ramah even adds more. Even if you're giving the money to the priests, they don't use that for pure Avodah Zarah. By all they're doing, the partying. Okay, so you're participating in a Goyish party, but it's not anything as an extension of Avodah Zarah. And then the Ramah says, V'oid the isbei mishum eva. And another thing you have to take in consideration, if somehow the Goyish world, which is the majority of the world, is celebrating and we do business with them, if somehow you refrain to do anything with them during this period of time, it might create eva, an animosity. Im nifrei shatzmeinu mehem b'yom chagam. If we refrain from being involved when they're celebrating, sometimes we do business with them and we have to be together. Va'anu shriyim b'neim, and we live amongst them. And throughout the year we do business with them. Therefore, the Ramah goes on to say that if you walk into a place and it happens to be the Goyish holiday, and the Goyim who you know are celebrating, you shouldn't necessarily have to avoid them. Yismach me'arim, you can even stick around and be part of the party. Mishum Eva, Tahave Kamachnif Lehem. Umikol Mokim, nevertheless, the Ramah says, Baal Nefesh Yarchik Lismayachim, to become overjoyful with them and to be excited about the party, about the event. If you could avoid it, it's best to avoid it. Or, and this is the next issue that Ramah says, if you are sending a present to a guy, and you're sending it these days where they're not so connected to Avodah Zarah, if there's any way you could try to avoid that it actually arrives on the holiday, rather make it come before the holiday. And the Shach explains, because if it comes late, when they're celebrating during the holiday, they'll realize that their Jewish friend didn't give them anything, might be an Ava. So make it arrive earlier, so it's not happening mamish on the day of the holiday. Now this is the issue of doing business or doing something fun, kind to the guy to see if it will lead to Avodah Zarah. So A, they're not so connected to the Avodah Zarah. B, there's the issue of Ava. But this is the one halacha. Then there is the second problem. The second problem is that in Siman Kuf Nun Aleph, if Yud Aleph, the Mechaber bluntly says, Asur litem matnas chinam lo'evei kechavim. You're not allowed to give a guy a present. However, the Mechaber says, what type of guy aren't you allowed to give a present? She'enei makirei, a guy that you don't know him, you don't have any relationship with him, you don't have any business relationship or whatever, you can't just give him a present because that's under the umbrella, under the Isser of Loi Sechanim. Loi Sechanim means a Yid should not go out of his way to try to find favor in the eyes of a guy. I always repeat a story I once read that one of the Brisker Rosh Yeshivas or Rabbanim, before he would travel from Israel to Switzerland, he asked his Talmidim to find out if in Switzerland, when you go on a taxi, do you tip the taxi driver? Because he's going to Switzerland, and if that's the Minhag HaMakom, he'll do it. But if it's not the Minhag HaMakom, to give a tip to a guy might be considered Leisachanim. You're just doing extra, giving a present to a guy that you don't know. But the condition that Amos the Mechaber says is, if it is Einei Makiroi, if you don't know who he is, if you don't have a relationship, then it's a present just to find favor for him. Kumtach Uis, if it's a guy that you do know, let's say you have a cleaning lady or you have somebody that works by you and you want to give him a bonus or you want to give him a present, at the end of the year present for whatever work he's done, it's not necessarily you giving him the present for him. You're giving him or her the present because you want them to continue to work for you, and you want them to do a good job or even better than that way they were doing till now. So ultimately, it's not for you to find favor in their eyes. You're basically just, as we say, from the right pocket to the left pocket, you want them to be happy with you, so they should continue working for you. So in a case where a Yid benefits from the giving of the present, the place can say you're allowed to. Now, it's actually, in Hilchas Tefillah, there's a Magen Avram, Siman Sadik, Sif Katan Lamed, where the Magen Avram says, and the Magen Avram discusses what the Ran says in Maseches Gittin, that Rabbi Eliezer was Mishachrer, his Eved. He let his Eved go free because he needed a 10th person for a minyan. An Eved is not part of a minyan. So he was Mishachrer him, so he should be able to be counted as one of the minyan. And the question is, excuse me, you just gave Eved, a guy, you just gave him a present for himself. You freed him. Weren't you over on Leisechanim? So the Ran says, no, you didn't. By doing that to him, you were not trying to find favor in his eyes. You actually wanted to have a minyan. So you did something that you were to benefit. Just like you're allowed to sell an Eved, and it's not a problem with Leisechanim, so too, if you do something to him where you gain, it's not to try to find favor in his eyes, it's actually So you should have better. Now I did find that there are other poskim that say that perhaps this whole issur of giving a present only applies by Christians, by Yishmaelim, by Arabs, those other religions. There is no issur of giving a matnas chinam, and that's up for debate. I saw this in Yalkut Yosef from the Rav Rashi of Eretz Yisrael, and nevertheless, this is up for debate. So as long as there is either a question of Ava, animosity, that it won't look good for the Yid if he doesn't participate, or as long as the Yid is giving it to somebody where he would benefit from it, then it's not a problem to give a guy a bonus, a present, an end of the year present, etc., etc.